Alien-like skulls excavated in Mexico. Scientists had not previously seen either in the Sonora of the American Southwest. Interesting, because we have a giant skeleton report from the Sonora. Near Sonora, 3 skeletons all more than 8 feet in height found by J.L. Coker, Sonora mining man. The Mexican giants were buried in a sitting posture in enormous stone urns. The remains of 3 adults 8 feet or more in height were discovered some weeks ago, and the excavations are being made in this locality. 30 miles north of Lima. Of this race of giants, a tribe lived on the island of Puna in the Gulf of Guayaquil. The giant skeletons discovered by travelers from Arizona to Peru have the same average height. Their weapons and utensils are alike, showing that the tribe once hunted and ranged along the Pacific coast of the 2 continents. In the curious burial mounds scattered over the American continent, skeletons of giants have been found, sometimes reaching heights of about 8 feet in height. The skeletons of the women are usually about a half foot shorter. One of the skulls is remarkably well preserved, with all of the teeth intact, and show that the retreating forehead and high cheekbones of the Indian. When Sandoval, the Spanish navigator, sailed down this coast to Mexico in 1524, he discovered a supposed race of giants. Ancient stories bearing hieroglyphics have also been found there, showing striking similarities to those of ancient Egypt. It is further reported that these natives used the cross as a symbol long before the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. Some contain human remains interred in a manner similar to those found in the burial mounds of the United States. At Teotihuacan, several skulls recovered from the tombs were found to closely resemble those discovered in the burial mounds of the United States, not only in size but also in their distinctive flattening at the back of the head. Captain Havana also noted that much of the pottery, particularly circular dishes, bear a striking resemblance to artifacts found in Arkansas. Construction work on Goat Island unearthed 8 skeletons. It is a mystery how they came here. The skeletons are of enormous proportions, few being less than 6 feet 6 inches long. The thigh bones are large and measured by present-day standards indicate that the owner of them must have been a man at least 8 feet high. This skull is like one found several years ago in West Berkeley when excavations were being made for the foundation of a building. Reports from Mexico yesterday announced a remarkable discovery at Ixtapalapa, a town about 10 miles southeast of Mexico City. Excavators uncovered what is believed to be the skeleton of a prehistoric giant. Judge Romulo Luna, the district magistrate, has taken official custody of these remains, which are said to be nearly complete except for the missing skull. Judge Luna stated that once the search for the skull is concluded, the skeleton will be sent to the National Museum of Mexico, famed for its extensive collection of Aztec antiquities, for further examination. The museum has already arranged an investigation into this extraordinary find. News of the discovery has revived one of the ancient Aztec legends describing a race of giants who once inhabited the valley of Anahuac. The ancient name the early Mexicans gave to the region that now includes modern-day Mexico City. According to the legend, these giants, known as the Quinametzins, ruled the land in prehistoric times until they were destroyed by another mighty race, the Olmeca, who were themselves of great stature. Their demise, the story continues, came by a massive earthquake, interpreted as divine retribution on expression of the wrath of God. So this story is interesting because right here it says the skeleton was 15 feet high and it was missing the head. And then it also mentions that the judge took possession And it will be going to the National Museum of Mexico. Reminds me of the Titans and the Olympians from the Greek mythology. So, is that a correlation, coincidence, or maybe it's just the colonial Europeans putting Greek mythology into Aztec mythology? I'm not sure, but Toltec Legends of Giants and this drink called pulque. Pulque is prehistoric in the Central Plateau of the Mexican Republic. Long before the Toltecs entered the Central Plateau, the Otomi people were already using the whitest drink to become drunk. Historians of prehistoric Mexico confirm that the first races arrived were giants who lived naked, with loose and disheveled hair. They ate raw meat from birds and wild animals, as well as fruits and wild plants, hunting birds with arrows and beasts with heavy tree branches. These giants were cruel, proud, and very fond of pulque, which they already knew how to extract from the maguey plant. The Quinametzins, giants, peacefully received the newcomers, which they're talking about human beings, and allowed them to settle in their lands only to exploit them, imposing heavy tribute and harsh abuses. Eventually, unable to endure this any longer, the newcomers resolved to destroy them. They prepared a banquet, serving the giants all the pulque they desired. Once they were drunk and collapsed on the ground, they killed them all in a single day, thus freeing themselves from those intolerable masters. Some historians believe the Quinametzin were actually the Otomi, considered among the earliest known inhabitants of Mexico, who already had a capital by the 7th century near where Tollan later rose. The Toltecs may have built their city upon its ruins, becoming conquerors of the Otomi, who were described as barbaric and deeply given to intoxication. The legend of Quetzalcoatl, the civilizer of the Toltec Empire, is also tied to pulque. According to tradition, he was born in the year 895, called our prince, son of Chamala, who conceived him by swallowing a precious stone. Quetzalcoatl became a great priest and leader in Tollan, known for his wisdom, penance, and rejecting of human sacrifices. He also discovered pulque and cacoa. His enemies, described as demons or rival priests, sought to destroy him. They tricked him into drinking the pulque, assuring him it would not harm him. After tasting it, he drank more, eventually becoming drunk. In this state, he abandoned his discipline, gave in to the pleasure, and fell into disgrace. Overcome with shame, the next morning he declared that he had sinned and could not cleanse his name. Filled with sorrow, he left Tollan, journeyed to the sea, and ultimately immolated himself. From his ashes rose his spirit, becoming the morning star Venus. Thus, from the legends of the early peoples of the Central Plateau, it follows that pulque was the ruin of the Quinametzin giants, of the god Quetzalcoatl, God, and of the entire Toltec Empire. For the third time in a single year, reports from northeastern Mexico describe the discovery of ancient bones said to belong to a vanished race of giants, men and women who supposedly stood 9 or 10 feet tall. It does say that the story in Mexico is actually different. The Mexican discoveries, however, present a different situation. The bones found there are unquestionably human. Skulls have been recovered alongside them, and the human skull is unmistakable. This is interesting because it argues against giants, but it says that the skeletal remains in northeast Mexico are legit, but they were just laid out incorrectly. So, if they were laid out incorrectly and you had a 9 to 10 foot skeleton and you laid it out correctly, that should only take away, maybe a foot of space? I can't imagine much more than that. So a 9 to 10 foot tall skeleton would still be 7 to 8 on the conservative side. So unless you just really had no idea and were just leaving big gaps between all the bones, 9 to 10 feet tall, put in the correct order, would probably still be a very tall individual. This says, legends of Indian tribes in Arizona and northern Mexico teem with tales of a race of giants who once lived on the mesas. Travelers in Peru tell of monster human skulls found in Chancall, 30 miles north of Lima. Of this race of giants, a tribe lived on the island of Puna in the Gulf of Guayaquil. Their skulls and weapons are in the Smithsonian Institute. There you go, right there. Here you have Mexico. Yucatan Indians have a legend of the giant Navapache who tripped up belated travelers by lying down across the trails. The Mexican giants were buried in a sitting posture in enormous stone urns. Similar coffins made of clay have been found on the plains of the far-off Chaldees in Asia. Skeletons of these men 9 feet high have been found near Progreso, Mexico. Their skulls and weapons are in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. Again, it says the same thing. The giant skeletons discovered by travelers from Arizona to Peru have the same average height. Their weapons and utensils are alike, showing that the tribe once hunted and ranged along the Pacific coast of the two continents. In the curious burial mounds scattered over the American continent, skeletons of giants have been found, sometimes reaching heights of about 8 feet in height. The skeletons of the women are usually about a half foot shorter. Enormous stone urns, which is interesting because over in, I think it's Laos, you can look it up, there's these gigantic stone urns. Maybe I'll show you here on Google here in a second, that I don't think anyone really knows what they're for, but they're so massive no one has taken them or destroyed them because they're just too heavy. So they still sit out in the middle of these like forests, and I don't think anyone really knows what they're for. Okay, Progreso. Progreso is a port city on the Yucatan Peninsula. Really? Okay. Alright, so the map's starting to come along. Skeletons of giants. From the Pittsburgh Chronicle-Telegraph, one of the most interesting of recent discoveries in Mexico is that reported by prospecting miners operating a new gold and silver mining district in the state of Chihuahua, according to one of the engineers who has reached Mexico City from the Sierra Madre range of mountains. Where the operations are being carried on, there have been discovered several human skeletons measuring from 10 to 12 feet in length. They were all found in one cave, being quite intact. The average length of the feet was 18 to 20 inches. The anthropological department of the Mexican government is planning to send a commission to investigate the discoveries. The investigation is expected to clear up the origin of the wonderful Indians of the state of Chihuahua. The skeletons were all found in the sitting posture, shoulders bent forward and arms resting on upraised knees, just like our last story said. Let's go to Chihuahua, Mexico. I wish it gave the name of the town. Fortunately, we got to work with what we got. Scientists dig for a super ray, seek skeletons of giants in graveyard near Sonora by Charles Holloway. United Press Special Correspondent, Soyopa, Sonora, Mexico. December 15, scientists composing an international archaeological expedition continue their excavations 20 miles north of here today in search of evidence of a race of Superman with the skeletal remains of 5 children, all more than 6 feet tall. The scientists changed the course of excavations to a spot where the skeletons of adults are believed to be buried. The remains of 3 adults 8 feet or more in height were discovered some weeks ago, and the excavations are being made in this locality. The additional discovery of the skeletons of children established the site as a burial ground used by ancient people who inhabited this vast wasteland in past ages, the same people whom the scientists believe will be found as a race of giants. Since finding the skeletons, Indians taken into the wilderness from here for excavation work have toiled unceasingly to bring to light remains of the heretofore mythical race of the Cyclops. Dr. Byron Cummings, head of the University of Arizona Archaeological Department, who is leading the expedition, expected to uncover other skeletons at any time. 3 skeletons, all more than 8 feet in height, found by J.L. Coker, Sonora mining man, several weeks ago, have been the incentive of the party to dig into the hardened ground for further evidences that might establish the fact that a race of large men and women roamed the North American continent. Pottery work and implements found in the graves already uncovered show the ancient inhabitants were highly developed artisans. Okay, got that. So the follow-up to that story I just read in Soyopa, December 15th, 1930, this is another article. A Progress Bulletin, Pomona, California story reported that the party had to flee because the Yaqui Indians destroyed or scattered the giant skeletons that they were excavating. On December 17th, 1930, a quick debunking appeared in papers such as Santa Paula Chronicles, San Pedro News Pilot, Bones Not Giants, they're just big Indians. Coker's claimed that an 8-foot average race was dismissed. The skeletons belonged to unusually tall, but normal prehistoric Indians. No giant race evidence held up. The whole episode was over within about 2 weeks. No scientific papers, museum collections, or later excavations ever confirmed a race of giants in that Sonora burial ground. The bones were either destroyed, scattered by the Yaqui, or simply reclassified as large Native American remains, common in that era when people were less familiar with the anatomical variation and newspaper loved giant headlines. So basically, the conclusion of that story was it was actually real, but they weren't a race of giants. They were just tall Native Americans. This one, sensational discovery, skeleton of a 30-foot giant unearthed in Mexico. El Paso, October 2nd. Reports from Mexico City claim that the skeleton of a human figure exceeding 30 feet in height has been unearthed near the small town of Nicacampipa in the state of Veracruz. Newspapers in the Mexican capital are calling for immediate formation of archaeological expedition to investigate the site and recover any additional rare fossils. The find has stunned local residents, with hundreds gathering at the location to venerate the remains as a divine relic. Experts in El Paso familiar with the region note that this part of Mexico, particularly the Yucatan Peninsula, has long yielded intriguing puzzles for scientists and historians. For instance, the Yucatan is home to the massive tree measuring 45 feet in diameter, which a German researcher once estimated to be around 6,000 years old. Ancient stories bearing hieroglyphics have also been found there, showing striking similarities to those of ancient Egypt. Yucatan's indigenous peoples preserve a legend of a bearded, fair-skinned man who arrived long ago to teach them religion. Some scholars speculate that this figure could have been St. Thomas, one of Christ's 12 apostles. It is further reported that these natives used the cross as a symbol long before the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. Drawing on this historical records from Mexico and Spain, some theorists propose that the Yucatan was colonized by ancient Phoenicians from Egypt, even prior to their settlements in Spain. How such a transatlantic voyage was accomplished remains a mystery, though proponents invoke the legend of Atlantis, the lost continent, as a possible bridge across the ocean. 19th century account claims Teotihuacan predates the Aztecs and shows cultural links to North American mound builders. This morning I had the good fortune to meet with Captain Havana, who has been sent here on a scientific mission. He had just returned from San Juan Teotihuacan, bringing with him a collection of Toltec relics and other antiquities that he believes belong to an even earlier civilization. Under an agreement with the Mexican government, these objects are to be placed in the National Museum in the city. After conducting a thorough examination of the pyramids of the sun and the moon, Captain Havana began excavations at the site of the ancient city of Teotihuacan. The ruins consist of vast accumulations of stone and debris spread across nearly 20,000 small mounds, which once formed the foundations of dwelling houses. Evidences strongly suggest that the city was destroyed by fire, as large quantities of charcoal and ash have been found within these mounds. That's kind of interesting. It reminds me of a story I just did in Arkansas where thousands and thousands of mounds were found in southeast Arkansas. Lamar Fontaine theorized that it once was a city that if 5 people per mound, a population of 11 million people. And inside these mounds, he said that they were dwelling houses, and they found evidence of fire, ash, bones from turkey, deer, bear, and fish. And it's just kind of interesting. Anyways, one excavated structure measured approximately 140 by 120 feet. The interior walls were coated with a stucco of vivid red hue, though exposure causes it to fade. Decorated with intricate designs, a fragment shown to me displayed a striking blend of crimson and white, interpressed with mica or powder quartz, which must have caused the interior to shimmer brightly in the light. You may recall that when Mr. Charney conducted excavations at Teotihuacan about a year ago, he reported discovering layers of stone pavement that he interpreted as evidence of 3 distinct periods of occupation. Captain Havana, however, strongly disagrees with this conclusion. He explained that careful excavation convinced him these so-called strata, sometimes only 2 feet apart and in other cases separated by as little as 6 inches of earth and pebbles, are simply foundational layers upon which the city was constructed. Beneath these layers, he discovered several sepulchres. Some contain human remains interred in a manner similar to those found in the burial mounds of the United States. Along these remains were pottery vessels, likely used to hold food offerings for the dead, as well as tools and implements made of obsidian. Last week, Captain Havana also examined the Pyramid of Cholula. Contrary to previous descriptions, he insists that the structure is not built upon a natural hill, but it is entirely artificial, composed of adobe, stone, and accumulated debris of an earlier civilization. In our conversations today, as in previous occasions, Captain Havana expressed the opinion that the Aztec civilization has been greatly overestimated. He suggests that many monuments commonly attributed to the Aztecs, such as the calendar stone, may in fact belong to the Toltecs or to an even more ancient culture. Which is interesting because I believe the Pyramid of Cholula is actually 3, maybe even 4 pyramids on top of each other. So you got the outside, which I don't think it's still excavated. It still looks like there's grass covering it. And there's actually a Christian or a Catholic church up at the top. Underneath that pyramid, there's another pyramid. It's like those Russian nesting dolls, and underneath that pyramid, there's another pyramid. I believe there's at least 3 pyramids underneath the Cholula pyramid, which is crazy. So his theory that it might be older than the Aztecs is not that wild. At Teotihuacan, several skulls recovered from the tombs were found to closely resemble those discovered in the burial mounds of the United States. Not only in size, but also in their distinctive flattening at the back of the head. Captain Havana also noted that much of the pottery, particularly circular dishes, bear a striking resemblance to artifacts found in Arkansas. From these observations, he proposes that the Toltec civilization may have been influenced or even overrun by peoples migrating from the north, as well as groups from Central America. He pointed to various indications of contact between these cultures, noting that the discovery of obsidian implements in the burial mounds of the United States, where the material does not naturally occur, suggests long-distance exchange or communication between these ancient peoples. Remember, this paper is pretty old, so back in 1881 when it was written, they probably weren't aware of obsidian occurring in the United States, but I'm sure there is places where you can find obsidian up here. The circular dishes bear striking resemblance to artifacts found in Arkansas, alien-like skulls excavated in Mexico. And it mentions in this story the flattening of the back of the head. This kind of, I guess you could say that was flattened, but it's definitely elongated. Looks very strange. Although cranial deformation and dental mutation were common features among the pre-Hispanic populations of Mesoamerica and Western Mexico, but scientists had not previously seen either in the Sonora of the American Southwest. Interesting, because we have a giant skeleton report from the Sonora. The practice of deforming, blah blah blah, cemetery discovered by residents of the small Mexican village of Onavas in 1999, where they were building an irrigation canal in the first pre-Hispanic cemetery found in northern Mexican state of Sonora. Let's look up where this is. This could be interesting. Wow. Pretty close. Okay, look at this river right here. Bet you that's the same river. Yep. Okay, so this is where our 8-foot tall skeleton and children were found. And let's just mark this, even though it wasn't part of my script. 2300 to 1500 years ago, they were making them in Mexico. And the Hope Well, 2000 to 1600 years ago in Ohio. Okay, oh look it, see that thing right there? On the key, this is those circular burials I was talking about. You can also see some have been found in Florida. They were found all over the United States, but these circular spokes of a wheel burials have been found in Mexico, yet these were supposedly independent ideas. They just kind of came up with the same idea somehow. And then here's South America. You see in Peru, this one represents elongated skulls. I'm not sure what the orange does, but these are 7-foot tall skeletons or taller. Some over here, even in Brazil. I'd love to see those reports. 8 skeletons unearthed. San Francisco, January, looks like 20-something. Contractors employed in government construction work on Goat Island unearthed 8 skeletons. It is a mystery how they came here. The skeletons are of enormous proportions, few being less than 6 feet 6 inches long. Okay, let's look up Goat Island, and enormous skeletons will be the label. Goat Island. Yerba Buena Island. Maybe the name has changed. That happens a lot too. I'm looking for Goat Island. Trying to figure out. The California, formerly known as Goat Island, is now called Yerba Buena Island. Okay, so Google Maps was right. It is basically right in the middle of the freaking bay. Giant skeletons discovered in prehistoric village south of San Francisco, Stanford University, California. Recent excavations have revealed that the peninsula south of San Francisco was once home to a race of people of unusually large stature. Professor Harold Heath of Stanford University's zoological department announced last week that his team had unearthed several skeletons of men of exceptional height about 2 miles south of the university. The discoveries were made at the site of the prehistoric village that once covered nearly 2 acres. In addition to the giant skeletons, the party found stone hammers, bone owls, and ornaments that show that the inhabitants had reached a surprisingly advanced level of craftsmanship and civilization. Pretty close to Goat Island, huh? South. What peninsula south? Maybe this? That the peninsula south of San Fran was once inhabited by a race of giants. Harold Heath, Department of Stanford, according to the statement it's given out last night, unearthed about 2 miles south of here several skeletons of men who were of unusual height. The prehistoric village covering nearly 2 acres has been found. So, finds giants' bones in a mound. Captain Newton H. Chitton makes discovery of skeleton of prehistoric man. Berkeley Office, San Francisco, California, 2148 Center Street, December 30th. Captain Newton H. Chitton, the explorer and lecturer, has proved the theory that he has held for some time, that this neighborhood was formerly the home of giants by finding the bones of these species. Captain Chitton refuses to reveal the burial ground of this prehistoric man, but admits it is somewhere in one of the old Indian mounds of West Berkeley. Gotta remember that for here in a moment. The bones found by Captain Chitton make almost a complete skeleton, the missing parts being a number of the vertebrae. The thigh bones are large and measured by present-day standards indicate that the owner of them must have been a man at least 8 feet high. Half of the skull is gone, but the half that remains showed that the head must have contained about twice as many brains as that of the modern man. This skull is like one found several years ago in West Berkeley when excavations were being made for the foundation of a building. I have no doubt, said Captain Chitton, that ages ago giants roamed around this country. This man was no monstrosity such as we occasionally have nowadays, but a perfectly formed man and possessed of great intellectual powers. I intend to continue my investigations in the hope in finding more of the bones of our ancestors. Captain Chitton will present the skeleton at Berkeley High School. So apparently if you have gigantism, you're a monstrosity. That was really interesting. Okay, so it said that one of them was missing half the skull. Well, that was interesting because some of those strange skulls we were looking at in Mexico, the head was cracked in half at like the eyes. So I wonder if it was something like that. Wow. Really interesting story because it mentions another report, but it says that they don't think these people had gigantism, but they were perfectly healthy people. And they are our ancestors. So let's look in West Berkeley on Google Maps. The head must have contained twice as many brains as the modern man. The skull is several years ago. So the foundations for a building, they found another one. The thigh bones are large. Measured present-day standards indicate that the owner of them must have been at least 8 feet tall. Okay, so West Berkeley. Let's look for Berkeley. California. He said in one of the burial mounds in West Berkeley. Look at that. What is believed to be the burial ground of the giant race which inhabited these shores before the discovery of California by Cabrillo has been found by Jacob Stoneberger and Robert and William Derbyshire of Santa Monica. On the beach of Malibu Ranch, where they were camped, the party observed a skull protruding out of the ocean's shelving bank of sand and gravel. Digging a few minutes, they unearthed 14 more skulls and a number of complete skeletons, all more than 7 and several over 8 feet tall. A large collection of heavy stone mortars, pestles, utensils, and various kinds, and arrow points were dug up nearby. One of the skulls is remarkably well preserved, with all of the teeth intact, and show that the retreating forehead and high cheekbones of the Indian. When Sandoval, the Spanish navigator, sailed down this coast to Mexico in 1524, he discovered a supposed race of giants, and Cortez 13 years later made search for them. It is against the wishes of Mrs. Ridge, owner of the Malibu, to disturb the remains, and unless her consent is obtained, the true story may still remain a sealed book. Explorers too told such tales. In 1615, Dutch navigator Jacob Le Marie, sailing near South America, wrote that his crew uncovered graves containing skeletons between 10 and 11 feet long. This echoed rumors of the Patagonian giants that captivated European sailors for centuries. Travelers often reported strange remains on the island of, which I'm just going to spell out because I know I'm going to butcher this name, Tenerife, Tenerife, in the Canary Islands. The Chevalier Scory claimed to have seen a skull belonging to a native Guanche with a jaw full of 80 teeth. The body, he wrote, must have been 15 feet tall. Did he exaggerate or mistake animal bones for a human? That is difficult to say, but the account survives as part of the giant tradition. Got it. And back to our story. Okay, got it. Delvers find giant bones from New Mexico comes a wondrous story of a skeleton. East Las Vegas, New Mexico, January 19th. An archaeological find has been made on the Mesa Rica near Chempento, this county. It is the skeleton of a prehistoric man. Legend has it that the vicinity of the Chempento and the Mesa Rica was peopled by a race of giants centuries ago. Evidence to substantiate this tradition was found on the ranch of Don Luciano Quintano. 5 men several days ago began to excavate at a place marked by 2 pieces of rough-hewn white building stone about 15 feet apart. They had dug about 5 feet between the stones when the skeleton was unearthed. The bones are well preserved. The giant's chest measurements could have been no less than 8 feet. The lower jawbone is all that remains of the head. It is a massive peeve, and in it is a huge tooth. The forearm measured 3 feet, and the length of the arm must have been about 6 feet. The skeleton will be sent to the Archaeological Society of Santa Fe. Now, to me, this sounds like a mastodon skeleton. That's just 8 feet across the chest. But it says that it was found in a building, or a stone building. It says, began to excavate a place marked by 2 pieces of rough-hewn white building stone about 15 feet apart. They dug about 5 feet between the stones when the skeleton was unearthed. I don't know. This one's confusing. That just sounds way too big for a human. 8 feet. Possible giant, likely a mastodon. Okay, got it. Alright, moving on to the next story. Okay, New Mexico giants with double teeth, the vanished race. The Reverend Dr. George H. Cole has returned from an expedition to the ruined cities of the southeastern Colorado and New Mexico, with a remarkable collection of relics from the vanished race of the Cliff Dwellers. His most valuable discoveries came from excavations in the ancient communal dwellings near the Santa Fe River. About 14 miles from Espanola, New Mexico, the site, which has not yet been named, it is said to be the largest pueblo discovered in the United States, and Dr. Cole was among the first people to examine it with scientific interest. Among the objects recovered were stone tools, rare pottery, human bones belonging to people whose teeth were all molars or grinders. Kind of sounds like an elephant, or a mastodon again. One burial yielded the femurs of a woman measuring 19 inches in length. leading Dr. Cole to conclude that she may have stood at least 7.5 feet tall. The ruins stand on a great isolated cliff that rises about 1,000 feet above the surrounding country. On one side lies the valley of Santa Fe River, on the other the valley of the Santa Clara. About 600 feet up the cliff is a broad shelf which likely served as a home to the cliff dwellers. Many centuries ago, in the soft pumice stone, they hollowed out family dwellings, gradually turning the shelters into a vast network of rooms. As the settlements expanded, room after room was carved out until the cliff caves formed a dense warren of habitations. I hate how they write these like tongue twisters, you know what I mean? It's like hard as hell to read this out loud and not take deep gasps for air every 2 seconds. Walls were built beneath the overhang to extend the living space and protect the people from weather and enemies. No contact with the cliff shelters gone. The inhabitants also built upward onto the mesa above. About 400 feet higher still, they constructed a communal village. The mesa is roughly 3/4 of a mile wide and 1.5 long, with steep cliffs on all sides and excellent natural defenses. On its edge stood a granite watchtower that Dr. Cole believed may have once reached a height of 60 feet. Because the nearest granite source was far away, the stone blocks had to be carried up the immense cliff by hand. On the lofty platform remains the ruins of 2 communal dwellings, one evidently older than the other. The older building has not yet been explored, and Dr. Cole says his own excavation amounted to little more than a surface examination. He estimates that the larger structure originally contained at least 600 rooms and perhaps as many as 2,000, measuring about 240 by 300 feet. It was built of stone blocks about 6 by 6 by 15 inches, quarried from the cliffs below and hauled upward by the workers. The rooms were rooted with timber and the walls were later raised higher. At the center was a large courtyard used as a common kitchen, from which the many rooms radiated outward. As the settlement grew, the structure expanded until it became 3 stories high, with rooms extending 12 deep from the central court and smaller courts scattered throughout the complex. Dr. Cole estimates that the population may have averaged about 3 people per room, giving a total of roughly 4,800 to 6,000 residents, not counting those who lived on the cliff caves. Dr. Cole has turned his parlor into an anthropological display, filled with the trophies of his summer excavations. One table is covered with water jars and incense pipes. Another is piled with stone axes, mortars, pestles, weaving shuttles, and pottery. A second table displays skulls and crossbones, while the rest of the skeletons wait to be assembled. Scattered around the room are bows and arrows, baskets, twigs woven into watertight containers with pitch, modern Indian pottery, photographs, and even a piece of petrified wood. The skulls are especially prized. Dr. Cole points to one he calls the Gigantus and notes that she lacks incisors in front, having grinders all around. He believes this is evidence that the people were grain eaters rather than meat eaters. He also observes that the skulls have high foreheads, suggesting intelligence, but are flattened at the back in a curious way. There you have, again, another account of these flattened skulls, just like was mentioned in Teotihuacan, and like I mentioned earlier in the reports of other mound-builder sites. You have them in the cliff dwellers. Okay, that's New Mexico, Santa Clara Canyon. Okay. And he called her the Gigantus, I believe. Alright, got it. That was a long one. That had a lot of interesting information in it, but man, that story was super long, or when these things were discovered. So they had no name, so I have no idea what the name was. But it might be this place. this is probably it. Same general area. Look at that. Wow. What are all these holes for? It must have had like logs coming out like a building or something. In the story, it did say that it says one structure contained at least 600 rooms and perhaps as many as 2,000, measuring 240 by 300 feet, and was built of stone blocks about 6 by 6 by 15 inches, quarried from the cliffs above and hauled upward. And then it said there was a stone tower and all types of stuff. So you know what's crazy is I would have never heard of this location if it weren't for reading through these archive reports. I had no idea this existed. So this is probably it, huh? Stone blocks. And he estimated that roughly 4,800 to 6,000 residents, not counting those who lived in the cliff caves. Wow. Well, I don't know for a fact that this is the right place, but it's pretty dang close to the story. Look at that. It's freaking huge. Wow. The foundation's still standing to this day, huh? That is pretty damn cool. Look at that. Whoa. Rafters still in there. Might be new ones, but man, PUYE cliff dwellings. Never heard of this before. See, this is why I do this. This is why I go through these old reports. Peter Marks of Walnut Creek, discoverer of the skeleton of a prehistoric human giant on his farm several weeks ago while in the city yesterday, stated that the curiosity is attracting such deep interest in scientific circles that he is almost deluged with letters, and during the past 2 weeks has been visited by Mr. and Mrs. Shoup, the former and attaché of the Smithsonian Institute. Wow, their name shows up again. At Washington, who made the long journey especially for the purpose of viewing the frame of the giant of other days. Mr. Shoup was provided with photographic instruments, and he took several pictures of the freak. So where are those pictures at? I would love to see those. He also desired to take it back to Washington, but this request was held up by Mr. Marks until later, and after he assertions whether Arizona desires it for its probable state museum. In that event, it will be donated, Mr. Marks stating that as the subject was found in this territory, it should be kept here. Mr. Shoup was very much interested in those portions of the human frame that were intact, particularly the skull, which indicated that the giant was of such abnormal size as to be beyond comprehension as that of a human being. Mr. Marks has uncovered another Aztec burial ground near the point where the skeleton was found, but the skeletons dug up here are of normal size and attract but little attention, only a small number being found. An old irrigation ditch has also been partially uncovered, and it is Mr. Shoup's belief that the place was intelligently cultivated in some past age by an industrious people. Mr. Marks has uncovered many implements, some of which are unique in construction, and for what purpose they were utilized is problematical. Let's put this on the map, and let's go back to our map. Walnut Creek, Arizona. Okay. Okay. Got that. Now, let's see what the map's looking like. Okay. 40 miles from Flagstaff, Arizona, Hull, the guide, has unearthed the petrified skeleton of a man who he estimated to have been at least 17 feet high. Later in the story, it says that it wasn't that tall, based on the gap between strides, but still was over normal height for a human. It says, the outlines of the body were perfect. Hull did not turn the fossil over to make accurate measurements. He and the old Indian studied the stone skeleton for 10 minutes and then returned to the trail. Near Hull found perfect footprints of the giant imprinted in stone. Their distance apart showed his stride to have been at least 5 feet. This would, however, indicate a height of not over 10 or 11 feet when Hull returned to Flagstaff. So you could say, if the story is accurate and true, and it wasn't mastodon prints or something, it was actual human skeleton, it would still be well over normal height. So the story said it was where? 40 miles outside of Flagstaff? 40 miles from Flagstaff, Arizona. So let's mark this down. 10 or 11 foot tall. Okay, got it. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. This was a follow-up to that Walnut Creek story. It says Peter Marks of Walnut Creek, now in the city with a load of fruit, says he is annoyed by the skepticism surrounding his report of the discovery of a giant skeleton, likely from Aztec times. He explains that since the story was first published a few weeks ago, he has received letters from all over the country, many of which question the truth. Marks reports that the giant skeleton, as recovered from the ground, is now stored away. He insists that there's no doubt that the individual was an extraordinary specimen of the human race. Although he has only part of the frame of its possession, he claims that it is enough to establish an accurate dimensions of the man. Truly exceptional stature from head to foot. In fact, he says it can be verified by anyone who wishes to examine the remains. He further states that since the original discovery, many additional objects have been unearthed, convincing him that this was a progressive people skilled in various crafts. Among the finds are crude implements, and in one case, inscribed states that he believes point to some form of education. Mark says he intends to bring what remains of the huge skeleton into the city in the near future so that the public can see it for themselves and draw their own conclusions. Texas prehistoric flood. Evidence suggests that long before written history, the Texas coast was struck by a catastrophic flood that wiped out an entire coastal population. Evidence suggests that long before written history, the Texas coast was struck by a catastrophic flood that wiped out an entire coastal population. Much like the recent disaster at Galveston, but separated from it by thousands of years. The story begins with a chance discovery made near Galveston, Texas, during excavations to gather artifacts for archaeological exhibit. At the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, workers digging near Clear Creek in Galveston County uncovered human bones in an area geologists say was once covered by the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. As the dig expanded, it became clear that they had stumbled onto the mass dead of an unknown prehistoric people. The first find came when the railroad excavations turned up a skull, fragments, and teeth in a shovel of earth. Closer inspection revealed entire skeletons, many of them grouped together, as well as ivory, beads, and other handmade objects. Realizing the scientific importance of the site, a more systematic investigation followed. Thousands of skeletons were ultimately exposed. In just one portion of the work, 1,500 skeletons were counted, and it was believed that many more remained. The bones lay in a bank of shelled gravel and sand, about 30 acres in extent, made up of several distinct layers. These layers of strata were each a few inches thick and separated by bands of silt or earth. Live oaks now grow over the topsoil, making it one of the last places anyone would expect to find remains of an ancient population. The position and condition of the body showed that this was not an ordinary cemetery. The skeletons were not laid out in orderly rows, but were found in chaotic heaps. Some were lying on their backs, others face down, and many on their sides. It was rare to find a single skeleton alone. More often 2 or 3, and sometimes as many as 14, were found together as if families or groups had died where they stood or huddled. This jumbled arrangement strongly suggested sudden death in a single overwhelming event, followed by rapid covering with debris rather than careful burial. From the investigations concluded that a great natural disaster, probably a tidal wave or massive coastal flood, had swept over a populous settlement along the ancient Gulf shoreline. At that time, the sea is believed to have extended farther inland than it does today. The cataclysm likely drowned thousands in a single episode, their bodies afterwards buried under layers of shell, sand, and silt. Details of the skeletons added further interest. Many skulls were large, and the teeth were heavily worn from hard food, yet showed no trace of decay, a sharp contrast with the frequent dental disease among more recent peoples. No children's skeletons were identified, possibly because their more fragile bones had long since disintegrated. Ivory beads about 1/4 of an inch in diameter and up to 2 inches long, pierced and grooved along their length, were found, some of the remains hinting at personal adornment and a degree of craftsmanship. The sheer number of skeletons and their close spacing imply that this was once a dense organized community, not a scattered band of nomads. The people who lived here appear to have had social structure, permanent dwellings, and some level of civilization, modern in a prehistoric sense. Through long vanished people before the era of the historic tribes known in Texas. Writers drew a parallel to Pompeii and Herculaneum, where Roman cities were suddenly buried by the eruption of Vesuvius and later uncovered with buildings, tools, and human bodies preserved beneath the volcanic ash. In a similar way, the Texas coastal people seem to have been overtaken in a single night by water rather than by fire, their existence sealed away beneath marine deposits for countless years. By striking coincidence, the secret of the ancient flood was brought to light just before another devastating storm and flood struck Galveston in modern times. As thousands of prehistoric dead were being unearthed for study and display, a new tidal disaster was about to claim thousands more lives in the same general region. Now, as the remains of that forgotten race go on view at the exposition, they silently testify to an earlier convolution of nature that obliterated a people who never knew the civilization that would one day rediscover them. Wow. It says Clear Creek. Okay, let's put that there. Okay. Is this Galveston? Yes, it is. Okay. Clear Creek. It probably, if it's a creek, where is it? Right here. I imagine it goes all the way to the coast, but we have evidence of an ancient flood in Clear Creek. Okay, moving on to the next story. If the report that the fossilized skeleton of a giant 18 feet tall has been found near Seymour, Texas is true, it is the most important ethnological discovery ever made in the world. Remarked by Dr. J.E. Pierce, professional of anthropology at the University of Texas. It would shatter all previous records for giants by nearly 10 feet, as the tallest man known to the anthropological research measured only 8 feet 5 inches. While it seems improbable to me that the bones unearthed near Seymour belong to a human being, I shall investigate the reported discovery. Despite Dr. Pierce's skepticism about the authenticity of the relic from a bygone age, the skeleton is now in the possession of W.J. McKinney, the oil prospector who found it. Numerous witnesses have examined it and vouched for its extraordinary size, attributing it to a previously unknown race. McKinney, deeply intrigued by his find, uncovered the fossilized remains near the surface while excavating on the narrow watershed between Brazos and Wichita River. Okay, that's our location. In his account, McKinney wrote, "I estimate that the man weighed between 1,000 and 1,500 pounds. According to my deductions, he lived about 2,100 years ago. The skull is 6 times the size of an ordinary man." He did not detail how he arrived at these figures regarding the giant's era or build. The bones may soon be donated to the Smithsonian Institution, which under Dr. J. Walter Fuchs is conducting anthropological research in Texas. Interesting that it mentions him, because I have Dr. Fuwkes. I have read his name in all types of other burial mound reports and giant skeleton reports. I know his name's come out several times before. That's just a side note. Okay, Fuchs is conducting anthropological research in Texas. Professor Roy Redcheck of the University of Texas, currently excavating Indian mounds near Round Oak, added that such a discovery, if verified, would usher in a new era of study. It would require further research to determine whether this 18-foot man from prehistoric times belonged to a distinct race or was merely a freak among people of average size. The Brazos River, called the Rio de los Brazos by early Spanish explorer, in the 14th longest river in the United States. 18-foot skeleton. Alright. It's kind of interesting that it looks like that river might run just right over to our last story, Galveston. How about it? Okay, Boca Grande, Florida. Discovery of a skull 1/4 larger than that of a normal modern, together with bones indicating a probable height of not less than 7 feet, led to speculation over theories of a great giant race believed to have inhabited Florida before the coming of the Spaniards. So let's mark that on the map. It said, 7 feet? Boca Grande, Florida. 7 feet. Oh, look at that. Kind of like in the same spot as Goat Island over there on our last story. They seem to have... Yeah, this kind of... It's like almost like the same thing. Like, imagine this is San Francisco. And remember there was that little island, Goat Island, like right in the middle. This is kind of like very similar. And then it said there was one on the peninsula south of San Francisco. So let's look at our map now. Tampa, Florida. Giant Indians who roamed Florida swamps 500 years ago, living on what shell mounds which they cracked with their teeth. The picture unfolded by archaeologists who have delved into the burial ground on the Gulf Island near here. Near Tampa. Let me see if I can get a closer look at this. All right, let's go back. Let's go to Tampa, Florida, Gulf Island. Are there any islands? Okay, so there's one. But knowing from our other stories, I wouldn't be surprised from, for instance, San Francisco. It was like something right here. It might have been one of those, or it might be that. Let's just put it over here. Tampa Giant. Okay, here's those circular burials I was talking about, like have been found in Mexico and also in the Mississippi and Ohio Valley. Oh, the Miami Circle. This is an interesting thing. The Miami Circle is a prehistoric archaeological site carved directly into limestone bedrock in the mouth of the Miami River in downtown Miami, Florida. I don't think anyone knows what the hell that is. This was another interesting report from Florida. Look at this one. Weeden Island, Florida. Archaeologists uncover an intriguing mix of human remains within its ancient mounds. Among them are 2 starkly different types of skeletons, some displaying large square jaws, thick, robust bones, while others are slender and fine-boned with narrow faces and pointed chins. These physical contrasts hint at a more than one distinct group having once occupied the same site. Excavations also reveal two distinct styles of pottery, further deepening the mystery. Some of the vessels are even bear molded human faces, kind of like the Arkansas death masks, eerily lifelike, as if preserving visage long lost to time. Could these be the so-called death mask bowls, often associated with ritual or burial practices? But look at, they took some pictures of some of the skeletons. You can see this one does look maybe a little more robust. That was an interesting one, but I'm trying to show you some of these giant skeleton reports from Florida. I know I've posted tons of them. Golgotha of the Pacific, an island covers with old human bones. Extinct race of vertebral giants, capture of the sole survivor of this ancient race that inhabited San Nicolas Islands. I remember this. I think it's a long story. It is. Look at that. It was actually really sad, and it talked about this very last person that lived there, and they tried to bring her to the mainland, and she didn't want to go, and they left her. And then someone came back years later, and she was still there, and then they brought her to the mainland, and I'm pretty sure she ended up like dying or something. San Nicolas Island for the investigations. The general opinion is that the physique of the Indian race that swarmed over the islands then was very much larger than that of any civilized races of today, and that some of them must have been 7 feet 3 inches tall. The skulls of this extinct tribe often measure several inches more than some of the skulls of today. Many skulls found lying about on the island show that their possessors must have suffered death from a club or a blunt battle axe. No one has yet found a skull on San Nicolas that shows marks of a bullet. Man, I would love to read this story to you. It's really interesting, but it's super long. Let's just put San Nicolas Island. Got it. Okay. So now I've gone through a good amount of reports here, and this video is already very long. So let's take a look at what we got now after reading all these reports. Remember, the theme was Mexican giant reports, right? We even have some down here. Okay, let's start in the north. So we have in 1524, Sandoval sees a race of giants. In San Francisco, we got 3 different locations. We got this one in West Berkeley, this one on Goat Island, and then this one on this side. And it was what? Enormous. Oh, it's this one was excavated by professor at Stanford. He said it was in an old Indian mound. Okay, so coming down the Pacific coast, you got, look at that, it's like this piece of land in the middle and on the other side. That's really interesting. Okay, and then down here in Malibu, but before San Nicolas Island, you have the Golgotha of the Pacific story that I just read. It's not too far from the coast. I mean, I say that from Google Earth, but I'm sure that's one hell of a paddle. I can't imagine doing that. What is this island? I don't know what this is. Isn't that so-called alien base right off the coast of Malibu? Isn't this it right here somewhere? Yeah, I thought there was that underwater alien base was right off of the coast of like Malibu somewhere right around here. And supposedly there's like pillars and stuff. I don't know about that, but it is just an interesting coincidence. Anyways, you got the 7 to 8 foot tall skeletons that were found on the beach over in Malibu. And then, let's say, looks like there's a line right there. Let's say the people, if you were here and you were to cut across the land, maybe something could be found here. But you have the giant of Walnut Creek, Arizona. And then you have the 10 to 11 foot tall giant. Was that the one? What is? Oh, This is the one 40 miles from Flagstaff, I believe. That must be Flagstaff somewhere over here. Yep. So we don't know the exact position of this one, but somewhere 40 miles and one, it doesn't say what direction it was. But this is out in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of matches the description that he gave, so it's possible it was around that area. And then you had this one, which was in that amazing freaking Adobe style city right over here that we were looking at earlier, the Gigantus. They said with a bunch of chewing teeth. And then this one, I really doubt, possible giant. I think it was likely a mastodon on Mesa Rica or something like that. It said that the chest was like 8 foot across or some crazy like that. Okay, but there does appear to be a line. And then if you keep following, the 18-foot skeletons over here by the this is that other one in Texas, 18-footer that I doubt is most likely a mastodon or something. Who knows? Because there are, like, the further you go back in time, the larger the giant reports seem to get. Like, if you look at some of the European accounts from like Rome, Italy, etc., there's some gigantic, huge skeletons that were reported, but they're probably Ice Age, animals, megafauna. Then you have evidence of the ancient flood in Galveston that wiped out some people. Okay, and then in northern Mexico, you have that elongated skull that we just found while searching on Google. And on that same river, just north, you have the 8-foot tall skeletons and the children who were even 6'6", I believe it said. Okay, and then you got one right out here in the middle of freaking nowhere, in the desert, 10 to 12 foot tall skeletons. Oh, is that Teotihuacan? No, that's not it. Yep, out in the middle of nowhere out there. 9-10 foot tall skeleton over here somewhere. Kind of looks like those Nazca lines, but they're just roads. Okay, and then yeah, we got those. And then you got Teotihuacan, strange flat skulls. Look at that. I have heard that the pyramids, this is a theory, some guy said, were aligned to magnetic north during their time period, and that's another way you can date pyramids. I don't think that's right, but this one is not to the north. That is okay. Anyways, this is true north right here, so it's a little bit off, but Teotihuacan, flat skulls. And then you had in Ixtapalapa, there was I didn't mark down how tall the skeleton was. Another giant report. Okay, any connection between these two? Any rivers that connect them or anything? And then you had one in Veracruz that was ridiculous, like 30 feet or something like that. What are these? Probably cartel runways. Not even supposed to be looking at these. Fentanyl warehouses. Anyway, and okay. And then going into the Yucatan, you had the 9-foot skeleton in urns in this. It said it was in this city. That's all we know. Progreso, if I remember correctly. And then the Navapache giant legend that laid on the tracks at night to trip people. We don't know that it was right there, somewhere in the Yucatan. I think this is Cancun right there. Yep, I've been there. And then if you keep following the coastline, you had the tribe of giants and the island of Puna in the Gulf of Guayaquil. I think this must be Ecuador. And then down here in Peru, in Chancol, I believe, it said 30 miles north of Lima. You had giant human skeletons there. And I'm sure there's many, many more. But maybe I'll save this map, because usually I delete these afterwards. But this is kind of interesting, because look at, you got a circle around the Gulf. I mean, you already know this whole area is absolutely covered in them. People always say, where are the Mexican giants? Well, here they are. And there's probably many, many more. And there's probably a lot that just didn't get reported at all. If I find a giant skeleton, I wouldn't want to report that. So imagine how many just never got mentioned. It does seem like there's kind of like a line here, you know what I mean? It could just all be coincidence. Anyways, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. If you like this episode and this information, trust me, I got a lot more planned. This is the type of things I can do after I collect so many of these articles. I can put together these comparison videos, which is what I like to do, to see if any of these stories can corroborate each other independently. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you're watching on Spotify, please give me a 5-star review to help me boost through the ratings. And if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, hit the like, subscribe, comment, anything to help boost this video and my channel. Thank you so much, guys. Keep camping and exploring the mysteries of our world.